The arena of Carsithvel reeked of toasted ammonia, burnt sugar, and something far worse, anticipation. It hung in the low gravity like smog, drifting through the breath holes of creatures who had never set foot on a planet. Every seat, bioluminescent pod, bone-thrown spore cushion, was filled. All 842 sentient species of the Galactic Concord were represented, or at least those who could tolerate the ambient radiation of Sector Dillon. Above them floated the Grand Ocular Array, blinking lazily as it broadcast the event live across 6 quadrants. The subtitles were unreliable. Everything else was perfect. Today was a championship duel. Not just any skirmish. No, this was ritualized, state-sanctioned, audience-voted blood arbitration. One species would walk away with their political demands reinforced by honor. The other would walk away in a biodegradable pouch. In the center of the vast shimmering arena stood a woman. 2 legs, 2 arms, no weapons. Just a compact figure in a matte black flight suit, standing very still. Her boots didn't squeak. Her chest didn't heave. Her hair, dark, clipped short at the jaw, barely moved in the stirred gravity. Her name, when it was announced, caused several in the audience to blink. It was not translated. The arena AI simply gave up halfway. Combatant of Earth origin, Li Mira nor Th. No title. No house or honorific. Just the sterile hum of that name, floating like static. No one applauded. One larval ambassador coughed up a jewel and quickly swallowed it again. Behind force fields in the diplomatic viewing deck, Species 2 refined for war-raised oculars and pseudopods in mild dismay. Humans, one said, clicking its beak. Always a performance. She looks so soft, murmured another, adjusting its breathing membrane. Do they still grow from internal wombs? An arbiter, dressed in the robes of planetary neutrality, lifted 4 limbs and declared in 7 dialects, the duel shall commence under Protocol 29C, honor combat for interstellar resolution. The terms are binding. The results are absolute. The refreshments are non-refundable. A polite ripple of laughter. Galactic humor, formal, bloodless, boring. The true entertainment loomed behind the veil. A massive shadow, rippling like old silk. 6 limbs emerged first, each glistening with chitin. Then a head, a crown of spines. Then the mouth, 6 mandibles, each the size of a chair leg, flexing with the patience of something that had devoured its tutors. Nerexalok the Dismemberer stepped into view. Gasps. Cheers. Chemical screams. Several creatures began shedding luminescent flakes in joy. The arena dimmed as his name appeared in orbit, spelled in burning glyphs. A childlike species wept. The announcer chirped, champion of the Tarka Prime Clade, devourer of champions, unmatched in 302 battles. Nerexalok returns to defend the Pride Accord and the devouring claws with terminal diplomacy. He bowed, forearms raised in ceremonial glee. Rachel remained motionless, her hands tucked in the small of her back. A compass, small and worn, hung at her belt. Commentators launched into breathless analysis. The human is unarmed. She's not even wearing external plating. There's no visible muscle enhancement or behavioral twitching. This is either an insult or a tragic miscommunication. Rachel blinked once. In the human delegation box, 3 diplomats leaned forward, one chewing his knuckle like a rodent. The other 2 looked like they'd aged in the last hour. This is madness, whispered the youngest. She's a translator, not a soldier. She volunteered, the eldest replied. You think we could have stopped her? Did anyone ask why? She said she had experience. And that we'd win. What kind of experience? The arena silenced. The first move was ceremonial, the echo of intent. Nerexalok shrieked. A chorus of war echoes burst from his carapace, vibrating the walls, shaking the floor, and rupturing the ears of any diplomat without filtration. His battle scent, a vaporized mixture of pheromones and pulverized enemies, hissed across the arena. A few sensitive creatures fainted. Rachel tilted her head, as if considering music that wasn't to her taste. The announcer whispered, combatants may now engage. But she didn't move. Nerexalok moved first. Not a lunge, a trot. He wanted showmanship. He circled her, slamming his claws into the ground. Sand hissed into the air. Gravity stuttered. One of the arena's domes cracked slightly. A camerabot went blind. The crowd roared. Rachel took one step to the left. Not fast. Just there. The second pass came quicker. A blur of limbs. A scythe nearly brushed her chest. She ducked, twisted. Not away, but forward. Past his shoulder. He missed again. The motion was casual. Intentional. Nerexalok hesitated. He knew she wasn't lucky. The next strike came with precision. A backhand that could have pulped steel. Rachel didn't dodge this time. She dropped to the ground, letting momentum slide over her body, like water off dark glass. She tapped the floor once with her fingers. Observers frowned. They rewound footage. She's mapping it, muttered a squid-like tactician. Every vibration, every misstep. That's not reaction time. That's preemptive modeling. She's predicting him? Worse. She's learning him. Nerexalok snarled. But even snarling took time. Rachel rose, brushed dust off her sleeve, looked bored. "Do you want to try again?" she asked, her voice finally audible. Several translators fried themselves trying to render her sarcasm. In the upper box, a diplomatic liaison stood abruptly. "She's doing this on purpose. She's provoking him. That's suicide. No, that's bait." Nerexalok charged. A real charge. Unhinged, monstrous, beautiful. Claws wide. Mandibles shrieking. Rachel took 2 steps back. The force of the strike hit a shield wall behind her, shattering it. Spectators screamed. Security drones activated. But she wasn't there anymore. She was beneath him, and then beside him, and then behind him. Something sparkled. A mandible dropped to the ground. Silence fell like snow. Nerexalok stumbled. His followers screamed, their light bands flashing red. The AI announcer stuttered. "Damage report pending, auditory interference." Rachel exhaled, one hand still holding the blade. Nobody had seen it until now. It was barely a knife. More like a scalpel. Thin, humming slightly with molecular heat. It had been hidden in the spine of her boot. Rachel didn't move to strike again. She waited. Blood, black, steaming, pulsed from Nerexalok's face. He turned slowly, one mandible useless, dripping into the arena sand. His movements were slower now. He blinked in an alien pattern that meant recognition. Not prey. Predator. He charged once more. She ducked again. This time, she did not stop at evasive motion. She moved like a ghost through his defenses, under claw, over tail, into space between armor plates. And there she drove the blade once. Twice. On the third motion, she was behind him. The giant paused. Body stiff. Then folded. Not dead. Paralyzed. Rachel stood over him, boots scuffed with ichor. Her compass swung gently at her hip. The arena did not scream. It breathed. Crowds from 70 worlds watched her face. They saw nothing triumphant. No joy. No anger. Just silence. Then she looked up past the cameras, past the species who'd mocked her, past the officials who'd called humans brave with faint condescension. She looked through them. And then she smiled. Not wide. Not warm. A quiet, satisfied smile. In the Galactic tongue, 1,000 broadcasters scrambled to name it. They called it the look before empires crumble. The announcer, malfunctioning slightly, said, "The Earth origin combatant is victorious." And across the galaxy, the first murmurs began. They are not what we thought. They were never what we thought. And maybe, just maybe, they never were cowards. Just waiting. The arena lights dimmed. Rachel walked toward the exit, compass steady, her pace calm. The crowd parted. Nobody dared stop her. Rachel Mira North did not look like a warrior. Even now, seated on the medical platform, flanked by 2 mute drones humming diagnostic tunes, she appeared almost serene, like a librarian who'd wandered into a coliseum by mistake. Her pulse had returned to baseline. Her wounds superficial. No armor. No neural enhancements. Nothing in her bloodstream but trace amounts of T, and a mild antihistamine for arena pollen. Her boots were off. One of them still held the slender blade she hadn't bothered to retrieve. No one had dared ask for it. Across the chamber, a diplomatic triad huddled behind a force curtain. They whispered with frantic intensity, voices like insects behind glass. Rachel didn't glance at them. Instead, she studied the curve of her compass, thumb grazing the polished brass. Its needle spun, not for magnetic north, but for something stranger, something quiet and old and human. "I didn't come here to fight," she said aloud. The drones made no comment. "But then again," she added, "I didn't come here to lose." A door slid open with the subtlety of a guilty conscience. The human ambassador entered, tall, exhausted, and visibly chewing on a tablet stylus. His suit was rumpled. His left eye twitched. He looked like a man who had just survived both a galactic incident and a nervous breakdown. In truth, he had. "I told them not to send you," he began. "You didn't tell me. You wouldn't have listened." Rachel turned the compass once, then clicked it shut. The sound was small, yet final. "What happens now?" she asked. He stared at her a long moment, then dropped into the chair across from her. A pause stretched between them, heavy with unsaid things. "They're panicking," he said. "Treaties are being re-examined. Threat assessments updated. Half the Galactic Senate thinks Earth's been breeding assassins in gravity wells. The other half thinks you're a unique mutation. Either way, we've just been moved from cultural curiosity to unquantified threat. I suppose that's a promotion." "No, it's a prelude." Rachel nodded once, expression unreadable. Outside the chamber, a delegation passed, alien bureaucrats with data slates and fearfully polite smiles. None of them looked through the glass. None of them dared. The ambassador leaned forward, dropping his voice. "Why did you do it?" She met his eyes, and for the first time, something shifted in her stillness, something deeper than pride or revenge. "They called us cowards," she said. He waited. "They said we run from pain, from fear, from conflict, that we hide behind peace talks and laughter and music. They think we're cute because we cry when things matter." A pause. "We didn't answer. Not when they colonized the border moons. Not when they laughed at our dead. Not when they invited us to this duel expecting a ritual sacrifice." The ambassador's mouth opened, then shut again. He looked tired in a new way now. "I didn't do this for Earth," Rachel said. "I did it for the child they bombed in orbit because he was trespassing. For the miners they locked in their own ship and called it a misunderstanding. For every time they told us our emotions made us weak. You could have just said that at the press conference." She smiled faintly. "Words don't reach creatures like Nerexalock. Only demonstration." Outside, another murmur rippled through the viewing halls. Something urgent. Something new. A drone floated closer, projecting the feed. On the main galactic news stream, Nerexalock's body, still comatose, was being transported with ceremonial precision. Wrapped in silk bandages. Covered in honor sigils. The caption read, "Unprecedented loss." Below it, footage of Rachel's final strike played on loop, frame by frame. Viewers dissected every motion, every expression. Her footwork was being mapped into a war algorithm. Her heartbeat measured against alien timelines. She had become myth by accident. Rachel studied her own face in the feed. The woman on screen looked older than she felt. Not in years, but in certainty. "They're going to ask you to fight again," the ambassador said. "I won't. They'll say you're our best chance. I wasn't the only chance. Just the one who said yes." He ran a hand through his thinning hair, and for a second, the weight of Earth seemed to sag his shoulders. "We were supposed to be diplomats," he muttered. "Explorers. Artists. Scientists. Not predators," she offered. He winced. Rachel stood, rolling her shoulders with a soft crack. The room felt smaller once she moved, like she'd been holding still to spare it. "I didn't kill him," she said, not as defense, but as clarification. "No, you didn't. I showed them what we can do. That's all." He nodded slowly. "Then why does it feel like we just lost something?" She looked at him for a long time, then gently placed the compass into his palm. "You're still looking in the wrong direction," she said. Outside, the arena was being scrubbed. Blood, hers and his, cleaned by drones shaped like stingrays and sermons. The sand had been taken, sealed. It would be auctioned as relics within hours. A culture of violence wrapped in ceremonial protocol, pretending to be law. Rachel walked toward the exit corridor, past the force fields and stun guards. No one stopped her, not even the diplomat assigned to debrief her, whose 3 hearts thudded unevenly when she passed. In the security hub, someone whispered, "She didn't even run." She didn't need to. She didn't. Outside the arena, a fog of ceremonial incense masked the sharp tang of fear. Across the Galactic core, broadcasts erupted. Translations struggled. Even AI struggled to describe her victory in terms other species could grasp. One labeled it, a sudden adjustment in the food chain. Another simply called her, the girl with the human eyes. Rachel didn't look back. Not once. Because cowards look back. Cowards explain. Cowards apologize. And she had decided, very quietly long ago, that humanity would never again be mistaken for cowards. Not because of rage. Not because of revenge. But because of memory. Because she remembered the screams from the Martian refugee bay. Remembered a child's drawing found floating near a wreckage. Remembered the file buried in her neural core, labeled apology, containing coordinates of a village that never got one. They had called her soft. She'd accepted it, then shown them what softness becomes when compressed by gravity and time and loss. It becomes steel, and steel, when directed, cuts. She vanished into the hangar. Far above, the diplomatic feeds were still updating. Threat assessments were being recalculated. The Concord's military think tanks had just added a new category. Unarmed human female, class, apex unknown. Back in the chamber, the ambassador sat alone, staring at the compass in his hand. Its needle pointed nowhere. Or maybe precisely everywhere. And for the first time, he wondered if the real conflict had only just begun. The rituals before battle were always absurd. Rachel stood still as a glug priestess smeared fermented algae on her cheekbones and spirals, chanting a war blessing that translated roughly to, "May your dismemberment bring honor." Behind her, a quartet of jelly-like beings hummed their cultural dirge, punctuated by flatulence-like pops. It was considered deeply respectful. Nerexalok, in contrast, was undergoing his own preparation, more grandiose, more lethal. His armor had been freshly shellacked with the dust of a fallen asteroid. 2 of his surviving clutch brothers flanked him, reciting each of his 302 victories as if invoking a god. His spines had been sharpened, his inner mandibles polished to a ceremonial sheen. Across the galaxy, millions watched as he extended his primary limbs in salute and roared a pheromone-heavy benediction that caused 3 commentators to vomit mid-broadcast. Rachel blinked as a translator drone hovered at her shoulder. "Would you like to offer your battle cry for cultural symmetry?" it chirped. "No," she said. "But tell them thank you for the fish paste." The drone hesitated, emitted a soft processing hum, then hovered away. The arena lights dimmed. Not from drama, but necessity. The photoreceptors of the krill symbiotes were notoriously sensitive. From the void above, the AI announcer resumed its commentary. "Combatants are in final formation. Last chance for diplomatic withdrawal. Last chance for refunds." No one moved. Rachel stepped forward onto the scarred platform that would become the ring. It wasn't quite sand, not quite metal, something artificial, frictionless, meant to confuse muscle memory. She let her boots adjust to the surface, heel first, always silent. Nerexalok opposite her now, flexing. Limbs spread. Breathing slowed to a predatory rhythm. He was watching her with all 6 of his compound eyes, each blinking at different rates. Calculating. Or mocking. Maybe both. She lifted her hand. Not in salute. Just to pull her hair back behind her ears. The announcer declared, "Combat begins on the 3rd tone. Spectators, please disable bioecho devices to avoid misinterpretation of screams." A moment. 2 tones. Then, a burst of kinetic sound. Nerexalok moved like a nightmare in fast forward. He didn't charge, he erupted, claws swinging in overlapping arcs, each designed to herd, trap, crush. His limbs blurred. The arena's shield shimmered as air screamed around his strikes. Rachel moved once. Down. She dropped flat, shoulders grazing the platform, just as the claws passed inches above her. Her body twisted with the kind of control born not from reflex, but memory. Not the memory of practice, but of pain. She rolled sideways, pushed off one hand, rebounded against the arena wall, landed in a low crouch. He was already there. This time she slid under his strike, the edge of his forelimb clipping the air beside her cheek. She turned the momentum into a pivot. Her fingers brushed the ground. A spark. No, just dust. She grinned. Barely. He lunged again. Her mind sharpened. Breath. Step. Rhythm. Center of gravity. Shoulder tension. Elbow rotation. She wasn't dodging. She was analyzing. To the untrained eye, it looked like desperation. Staggering, evasion, fluke. But her gaze tracked everything. Micro-movements, friction shifts, even the echo of his feet in the artificial terrain. He was used to prey that scrambled. She was writing his algorithm. The fourth time he struck, she feinted left, saw his mid-limb flex an eighth of a second too slow. Her heel drove into the platform. She slid just under him, sliced upward. A thin line appeared across his armor. Decorative. Unimportant. But Narexalok hissed, an instinctive sound, not a strategic one. He was irritated. Good. He spun, claws wide. One caught her arm, barely, but it tore through fabric and flesh. Blood darkened her sleeve. Rachel didn't wince, just turned, and smiled. That stopped him. Not long. Half a beat. But enough. You really thought this would be easy, she said. Her voice, flat as ice, traveled perfectly through the comm feed. You die slow, he replied, with something like admiration. Or contempt. They always do. She shrugged. We're sentimental. Then she struck. One step, just one. But perfect. Centered. She ducked under his counterblow, twisted inside his reach, and delivered a quick snap of her knee into the junction of his primary thorax plate. It was not a killing move. It was a test. And it worked. He reeled back, not from pain, but surprise. Because she knew the spot. And he hadn't taught it to anyone. She saw the flicker in his compound eyes, the moment he realized she'd studied him. Not from reports. From silence. From watching. From surviving. He came at her again. Sloppier now. Angrier. Faster. Faster than before. The kind of speed no sentient being was built to counter. But she wasn't countering. She was waiting. He loomed. Claws everywhere. No escape. Except. She stepped forward. The crowd gasped. She walked into it. Not all the way. Just enough. His primary limbs swung down. And missed. Because she was no longer where her body had started. She was behind him. He had struck where she should have been. And now he was open. The blade slipped from her sleeve, small, humming softly. She didn't stab. She tapped the back of his knee. A nerve cluster known to only 3 species. The right application caused temporary neural disorientation. He stumbled. Then she struck upward, into the subchitin joint beneath his secondary lung. One precise cut. A hiss of fluid. The limb dropped. The crowd screamed. Or tried. Many forgot how. Narexalok spun, but unbalanced now. His breathing accelerated. His gaze darted, not to her, but to the arena's edge. Calculating escape paths. She'd seen it before. That look. The predator's first brush with panic. Still think we're cowards? She asked softly. He roared. It shook the structure. This time, he threw everything at her. Claws, mandibles, tail, rage. No technique. Just fury. She waited. And then moved once more. Right. Pivot. Lean. One breath. Her blade arced upward. It caught the underside of his jaw, slipped into the soft cartilaginous buffer behind his optic ridge, and stopped, exactly where she intended. He froze. His limbs locked. Breath staggered. Then he slumped, limbs twitching, collapsing to the arena floor like a dropped statue. The silence was absolute, not reverent, terrified. Rachel stood over him. Blood dripped from her fingers. Her face was calm. Her eyes, impossibly human, scanned the crowd, as if she were searching for something familiar. A face, a sound, a reason. She didn't find one. So she turned, walked to the edge of the platform, and waited. In the broadcast towers, commentators stuttered, trying to translate what had happened into military terms. Nothing fit. In the diplomatic wing, half the Senate watched the playback and started revising their planetary evacuation protocols. Just in case. In the shadows above, something that called itself an empire finally understood it had miscalculated. The fight was over. But the implications? They were just beginning. The silence after a duel was rarely this complete. Even in a galaxy fluent in violence, where creatures screamed in ionized languages and applause was measured in bioluminescent eruptions, the aftermath of Nerexalock's fall created a stillness that blanketed the arena like the surface tension of poison water. Rachel Mira North stood in that silence. Blood slicked the side of her arm, his not hers, and pooled around her boots, soaking into the molecular fabric of the arena floor. The body behind her hadn't twitched in minutes. It wouldn't. His central nervous system was intact but non-functional. She hadn't killed him. That had been intentional. Dead things told no stories. Broken legends did. She wasn't smiling. Her breath came slow, her eyes calm. The blade she'd used, a sliver of heat-sharpened alloy shorter than her forearm, was now gone, slipped back into the sheath stitched beneath her left sleeve. No drama. No gloating. She didn't need theatric closure. That had never been the point. The lights brightened, slowly, reluctantly, as if afraid to draw attention to what had just occurred. Drones zipped through the air, silent now, their broadcast feeds broadcasting everything, but offering no narrative. Nobody knew what to say. The announcer tried first. Combat has concluded. Victory has been assessed. Earth origin combatant is victorious. A pause. Then, as if on delay, it added, with unprecedented clarity. In the viewing galleries above, the diplomatic elites had gone rigid. On one side, the Tarka delegation sat frozen, their crests folded in stunned disbelief. The eldest among them, a centuries-old matriarch named Oluthra, stared down at her champion's crumpled form with what might have been grief, or terror, or both. On the other, the human representatives weren't celebrating. Ambassador Wren rubbed his jaw slowly, his knuckles white around the tablet he hadn't taken notes on. Next to him, two aides whispered in broken fragments. She didn't just win. Crippled a war symbol. They'll retaliate, won't they? Rachel looked up then, and for a moment, met Wren's gaze through layers of reinforced transparency and protocol. He didn't nod, didn't blink, but he knew. She saw it in his eyes. They were past diplomacy now. Security protocols whispered into activation. Across the inner chambers of the Galactic Concord, messages were being sent, not in words, but in flagged alerts, color-coded panic, encrypted flight path edits. Earth was no longer on the cultural curiosity list. It had moved, quietly, unforgivably, into the predator column. Rachel turned her back on the crowd and walked slowly toward the ceremonial gate. There were no cheers, no honor songs. Even the Etherean flute monks, who always performed a lament for the fallen, remained silent. The ritual couldn't begin without a body to bury. And Nerexalock was still breathing, barely. A lone servitor drone trailed her path, unsure if it should offer her a towel, a datapad, or a trophy. She ignored it. Halfway through the corridor, a diplomat appeared. Not human. A Virak, a species of tall, silver-spined officials, with velvet voices and jellyfish faces. It hovered beside her path, uncertain but curious. "Champion," it said, voice rippling with respectful awe. "Your methodology is unfamiliar. You predicted far more than movement." Rachel didn't slow. "I studied him." "For how long?" 3 years. But there were no reports, no surveillance, no simulations. She looked at it now. Really looked. "I didn't use simulations." "Then how?" She paused only briefly. By losing. The Virik blinked 3 of its primary eyes. I do not understand. I've fought creatures like him before. Not in arenas. In corridors. On mining rigs. In the dark. Without cameras. Without rules. Its tentacles quivered. And we lost. We lost a lot. Too much. But I remembered. That's what humans do best. We remember what pain teaches. The Virik started to bow, then seemed to think better of it. It drifted away. At the end of a corridor stood a glass door, misted from within. Beyond it, a small room meant for transition. 1 minute of privacy before returning to public view. Rachel stepped through, without hesitation. The door hissed, shut behind her. Steam filled the room. Not from heat, but sterility protocols. It would sanitize her wounds, cleanse her suit, ensure she wouldn't carry biological traces into the diplomatic halls. She stood there motionless, as the steam did its work. Then, from the far wall, a panel blinked. A private channel. High clearance. She approached. The image that appeared wasn't from Earth. It wasn't from any official channel. It was masked, encoded in the manner of shadow networks. Underground. Illegal. But the face was human. Old. Weathered. Female. A scar down the right cheek. Her name wasn't given, but Rachel knew it. Everyone in her circles did. The woman didn't smile. You made quite the mess. Rachel folded her arms. You trained me for it. No. I trained you to survive it. You chose to escalate. They called us cowards. I remember. They needed to be corrected. The woman leaned back slightly. Well, they're correcting everything now. You know what's coming. Yes. They'll send envoys first. Then spies. Then assassins. Not just for you. For anyone who looks like you. I know. And Earth? They'll either rally or retreat. Rachel said nothing. You think they'll rally? She finally looked away. I don't care. The silence that followed wasn't judgment. Just understanding. You're not finished, the woman said at last. This wasn't revenge. No. Then what was it? Rachel looked back into the screen. It was the opening argument. The transmission cut. She exited the chamber. In the central hall, reporters waited, biomechanical, gaseous, gelatinous. Their languages scrambled to frame a question she wouldn't answer. Her file was already being rewritten by the Galactic Concord's intelligence division. Her face now sat beside footage of kinetic strikes, neural hacking, psychological warfare. None of it was accurate. She'd used no enhancements, no code, just memory. At the dais, the arbitration council gathered. 7 species, 7 robes, 7 languages translated in real time. The central figure, a rotund being composed of flickering smoke, floated forward. We recognize Earth's victory, it intoned. In accordance with Concord Law 29C, their political request is granted. The Tarka Empire's claim on Sector 8813 is nullified. The writ of passage is returned. The audience did not cheer. It simply accepted. Because the alternative was worse. Rachel took the writ without ceremony. It was a strip of radiant matter, legal code embedded in light. Worth a fleet. She pocketed it like a receipt. She turned to leave. And paused. One of the Tarka dignitaries, young, unscarred, stood directly in her path. He didn't speak. Just stared. She waited. Then he spat. A viscous, sticky insult that struck her boot and hissed. Gasps erupted. Protocol had been breached. Guards stepped forward. Rachel raised her hand, then leaned in barely. You lost, she said. Twice now. Once on the floor. Once in ear. She tapped her chest. He hissed something in a guttural dialect. The translator refused to process it. Possibly a curse. Possibly a prophecy. She stepped past him. Outside, the sky was fake, a dome projection of a system Earth didn't control, in a space station humans didn't build. But when Rachel emerged, the crowd still parted. Not because she was famous. Because something in her walk said, I'm not done. Back in the arena, drones began scraping up sand again. Scraping up blood. Some of it hers. Most of it not. News feeds exploded. Headline. Human female destroys Tarka warlord in one duel. Headline: The Predator in human skin. Headline: Coward no more. Humanity claims its fangs. In a bunker on Earth, a senator watched it all with shaking hands. In a Tarka War Council chamber, a general crushed his ceremonial goblet. And in a corner of the galaxy not yet charted, another species watched, rewound the footage, and revised their plans for Earth accordingly. Rachel Mira North was never mentioned in official dispatches, only in warnings, in simulations, in whispers. And late at night, when security systems cycled and the station lights dimmed, one diplomat couldn't sleep. He stared at her name in the archive, blinking at the classification now assigned to her. Threat level: Red Directive. Risk type: psychological/tactical. Species note: Apex anomaly. Triggers are unknown. Rachel returned to her quarters. No entourage, no guards, just the sound of her compass ticking softly beside her bed. She sat down, unstrapped her boots, unzipped her suit, cleaned the blade slowly, reverently, then laid it beside her pillow, where dreams couldn't reach her. She didn't close her eyes. Not yet. Somewhere, something was coming. Not retaliation, just curiosity. And curiosity, when mixed with fear, was combustible. She lay back, staring at the ceiling. Its lights were dim, her breathing even. The war hadn't started, but the Empire had blinked. And now, the galaxy would follow.